Attention aspiring consultants. If you're looking to build great consulting experience for your resume, look no further than the Strategy Sprint 1-week virtual consulting project. Strategy Sprint happens only a couple times a year, and the next project is coming up in February 2025. In fact, you can get an amazing early bird discount if you sign up by January 3rd, 2025 at the link in this episode's show notes. But what exactly is Strategy Sprint? Like I mentioned, it's a 1-week consulting project. You work with a small team, you get mentorship and guidance from a former McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultant, and you do the work that a consultant does over the course of a week to provide a recommendation for a real-world client that we source for you. But then you'll present your recommendation at the end of the week. So you not only gain skills and experience that looks great on your resume, but you also get great stories for your interviews. Learn more and join at the link in this episode's show notes. Welcome to Strategy Simplified and to this case interview demonstration. I first want to give a quick shout out to Carney for making this episode possible. Carney is hiring now for a couple different roles, so check out the link in this episode's show notes to learn more about the firm, to see open roles. Can't recommend the roles and the firm enough. So special thanks to Carney for making this episode possible. So let me share a little bit about the case. This is a Bain-Style case, and it's a growth case. Now, the client is a contact lens manufacturer seeking to quadruple profits in 2 years, and the client is seeking our advice on how to make this happen. So Coach Juliane leads a really fun case with a real candidate prepping for interviews. And so grab a pencil and paper, work through the case alongside Juliane and our candidate, and see what you get. Check out the link in the show notes to see the charts, the graphs from this case. In addition, you'll see a video recording in case you prefer to listen that way. So all of that is in the show notes. Lastly, Juliane would love to work with you in a session, kind of like what you heard today. So, she'll do a diagnostic mock case interview with you to kind of gauge your strengths and weaknesses, and then work with you to attack those weaknesses and turn those into strengths. So you can book like a 1-hour session just as a diagnostic, or a full case prep plan and program through a black belt case prep program. Links in the show notes to learn more. All right, grab your pencil, your paper, and your thinking hat, and let's get into this episode.
All right, great. Wonderful to have all of you here. My name is Juliane. I'm a psychologist that turned into a management consultant. So I studied a master's in psychology. I'm from Germany. Then I moved to Johannesburg, South Africa, where I still live, and joined Bain & Company at the time for 3 years across multiple industries, mainly in private equity, which, funnily enough, I enjoyed the most. Since then, I had an opportunity to build up the commercial subsidiary for Big Trust, offering consulting for the government, public sector. And then I helped some colleagues to build a small consulting firm in South Africa, Anura Partners, where I'm the director for professional development. This is also, we are all ex-NBB and building our own business, which is super exciting. But I also offer therapy, coaching, training as part of my business called Reflect with Juliane. So I really love that intersection between consulting strategy as well as personal growth, professional growth, and mental health. So also, if you want a holistic preparation for your interviews, looking at how can you get the skill set right, but also how can you prepare just emotionally or psychologically, that's how you can come to me. All right. And yes, I'm doing the case today, and I will be the interviewer as well as the coach. So when you see me like this, I will be interviewing. And then when I have feedback for Anna, that's when I will take or put on my jacket. That's when I will represent the coach to actually give feedback what she can change or be mindful of in the actual interview. All right. But I will do like an early round interview, because you need to keep in mind, when you go towards the later stage interviews, sometimes the partners put on a particularly strict face, and they are a little bit pushy because they want to see how you perform under pressure. It actually happened to me when I interviewed with Bain. You won't believe, I thought this partner was a little bit strict and I was so intimidated, and I thought I really failed this interview. When I arrived in Joburg, everyone told me he's the nicest, friendliest partner we have in the office. So you need to be really calm in the interview. Sometimes they actually just want to see how is your emotional maturity. And then if you show stress in the interview, they're going to wonder like, how I'm going to put this person in front of a client. So keep that in mind. We're really looking out for our next team members. We're not looking out for perfect advisors as of yet, but people we are comfortable working with and comfortable putting in front of our clients. All right, welcome, Anna. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for asking.
All right, from where are you dialing in?
I'm from Los Angeles in California.
Okay, lovely meeting you. And thank you also for submitting your application. Walk me a little bit about your resume so I get some idea of where you're coming from, what you're all about.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. So I'm currently a senior at UCLA and I'm studying bioengineering with a concentration in tech management and value investing. So coming to UCLA, I came all the way from London where I grew up. And then I initially started off doing some bioengineering research in a research lab. And I realized I wanted something more teamwork oriented and client facing. And so I began diving into consulting roles in various clubs and also consulting in internships as well. And in the recent year, I did finance at Amgen. And now I'm interviewing for consulting. So happy to be here. And thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. And why consulting? What excites you about consulting?
Yeah, so coming to UCLA, I've iterated upon what it is I wanted to do. And I think consulting appeals to me because there's such a steep learning curve in the first few years after you graduate. So there's no real other industry where you can be exposed to so many different industries and learn so much, and also be around a very high caliber of people as well. And I think that's really what excites me. I'm excited to learn. I think that's a real big value of mine, even post-graduation. And additionally, I'm excited to make a meaningful impact. And I think consultants really drive the world forward on the business end. And one well-executed solution can really lead to a real ripple effect in an industry. And I would be excited to be part of that change. So that's why consulting appeals to me.
Thank you so much. Let me take on my coach jacket and give you a little bit of feedback about those initial questions you might get in the interview, which are also there to build a little bit of rapport. Thank you so much. You spoke very eloquent and very fluent. This was great. You gave me a good overview of who you are. There is a few points that I want to make you aware of if you sit in the chair of the interviewer. So if you sit in the chair of the interviewer, you basically read your CV to me. I know your CV, I've looked at it. So it's really good to keep in mind that when you get a chance to walk me through your CV, bring examples, bring stories. We always remember you for that one story. Decide what that is for you and lead with that, bring that out, something that makes you really interesting and exciting. Also, don't just go through the CV as I see it there, but give me some small hints. What was most exciting about that experience at the university? What was most insightful about the summer internship? What was your best learning as you were maybe already in work experience? But also keep in mind, we look for our future team members. We really want to get along. And there's something that we call the airplane test. Even at Bain, we called it like that. And it's this idea that if I would board a plane tomorrow and sit next to you for 8 hours, would I enjoy my flight? And usually we wouldn't speak about your CV. So give me something personal. Don't underestimate that, because also we are just individuals. We are just human, also sitting on the interview chair. And you often forget that. But what I always say, what matters is how you make me feel as well. I might not remember every word of your CV, but I might remember that we had a great rapport. And that will also create the narrative or the frame of how I see you as a future candidate. Because if I feel like I really want her on my team, we had such a great chat, I will also look out more for the positives in the interview. If I feel like I'm actually not sure if this will be an enjoyable experience, I might look out more for the negatives. So never underestimate the rapport and the personal fit. When I ask you about why consulting, you had it sounded like spot on. You know a lot about our industry. And for you, that makes sense. For me, sitting on the interviewer chair, this sounded like something I might hear every week. it sounded a little bit too much like a website that would explain to you why to get into consulting. So I always say, if you want to know that you're too theoretical, people always say the industries are diverse, you work across multiple industries, the impact is high, and we have a lot of travel and exposure. I won't remember that, like, to be very honest. Maybe other interviewers do, but I don't, because I hear that way too often. So I recommend that you link it to yourself. Give me a personal story. Maybe there was someone in your environment that is in consulting. Maybe you attended a recruiting event and you got excited about one of my colleagues. Maybe there was a moment when you realized this is actually what I really want to do. Or give me an example where you demonstrated the skill set and you realized consulting would fit to me, or someone told you consulting would fit to me. It's easier for me to remember a story than a bullet list of things I already know about my industry and I hear in 80% of the interviews. You need to differentiate yourself, not by being perfect, but by being relatable. All right. Any thoughts or questions about the introduction part where you get a few questions about yourself?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's something I'll definitely work on. I think in my experience interviewing as well, interviewers have definitely been quite tired as well after doing multiple interviews back to back. And so I think hearing the same thing gets quite repetitive. So
Definitely. Yeah. And we're also just human beings, you know. You don't want me to start planning my dinner while I'm in an interview. And also remember, and as harsh as that sounds, I'm just being brutally honest to prepare you for the reality. As a manager or as a director in a consulting firm, there's a lot of priorities that come above interviewing. Clients, company, team development. We take recruiting serious, but if we stress in the morning about our days, there are other things stressing us out. So our adrenaline is not at the highest. So help us be engaged in the interview. But I'm sure you have a lot of wonderful stories also about you as a person, Anna. So bring them on to the foreground. That will help the interview. All right. Then we can jump into the case. If I look down, I'm just taking a few notes so I know which feedback to give you. Cases, always, please, you can take notes, but don't use a calculator don't use your laptop. You can pause at any time and you can ask me any questions, whatever works best for you. All right. So our client today is a contact lens manufacturer and they seek to quadruple their profits in 2 years. So that's why they came to us for advice. Contact lenses, generally speaking, I love them. I'm just not wearing them today. They can be categorized by style and duration of use. So based on style, lenses can be broadly categorized in 2 categories, the traditional ones and the cosmetic ones. So cosmetic ones might have some color or decoration. And then based on the duration of use, we have lenses that can be categorized into disposable or regular. Now, our client competes primarily in the US market. The margins are more or less in line with the industry. Western Europe and Japan are big contact lens markets outside the US, and the other markets are still relatively small. So our competitors are deeply entrenched in these 2 markets, and we don't have much presence there. In addition, we don't have much detailed information about this market. So how will you approach this problem to support our clients?
Okay, wonderful. So just to recap, our client is a contact lens manufacturer based primarily in the US. And their goal here is to quadruple their profits in a 2-year time frame. And they manufacture, contact lenses based on style or duration of use. And they're only present within the US market, not within Japan or Western Europe, where there is a big prevalence of contact lens use. Does that sound correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the question here is, how would we advise them and to move forward to try and meet their goal? So I have a few follow-up questions, if that would be okay. So let me think. So do we understand why they don't currently have a presence in Western Europe and Japan?
No.
Okay, no worries. And is that something we'd like to expand into?
I guess that's why they asked us.
Okay, that makes sense there. Okay, great. And then number 2, do we know kind of how our overall business model works? So who do we sell to and how do we make money?
And we sell to individual customers straight. Some we might
Okay.
sell to optometrists or different channels. But yeah, we pretty much manufacture and then sell at the margin.
Okay, so primarily B2C and then some B2B. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And let me think. So do we have any more information about who our main competitors are within the US market?
I can look that up. Novartis and Bausch & Lomb. 2 major competitors.
Okay, great. Okay, well, with that, let me just take a few moments to put down some thoughts here.
Do you want to work for a fast-growing M&A consulting and advisory firm? Then Palmtree is the place to be. Palmtree is a firm that's experienced incredible growth in recent years, even in the midst of the global economic slowdown, and hiring just keeps marching on. If you're currently an employee at a top accounting or advisory firm seeking to break into the M&A industry, or you're a student interested in learning about the M&A lifecycle, consider Palmtree. Join the firm's upward trajectory and help shape the future of M&A advisory. If interested, learn more and apply on the firm's careers page, palmtreellc.com, or you'll find the link in this episode's show notes.
I'm having my coach jacket just finished, and I'm just giving some information to the team. So this was 2 minutes, so it's advisable to use round about 2 minutes. And a lot of interviewers, they will take note if you take less than 30 seconds or more than 2.5 minutes, because then it's either that you're not paying enough attention or that you're not prioritizing sufficiently in your structure. So be very mindful of that. What I often find is that my candidates are too comprehensive, that they want to mention everything under the sun that could be important to this case. But you need to remember that prioritization is a key skill that we test you for. So what I always recommend is, if you feel the need to mention everything because you're scared to forget something, build your framework around the priorities. And then say, there are other factors we could still look at, which are this and this and this, which I won't deep dive. Then the interviewer knows that you haven't forgotten that, but you're also not running risk that you're mentioning too much and the interviewer will note down that you can't prioritize. All right, how far are you?
Yeah, great. I'm ready
Before
to
we
walk
go
you through.
to the framework, I wanted to give you feedback on how you recap the case. So the recapping of the case is very, very, very key. And all the skill sets that we test you on, we still use them in the real consulting environment. So if we recap what our clients want from us, the success of a project depends on that a lot. So what I noticed is you repeated my instructions. You didn't recap it. What is the difference? You repeated it beautifully, so active listening was great. However, to recap goes beyond repeating, not just saying what I told you, but structuring it. And the most commonly used structure is this of a situation, complication, and solution, where you say, what's the situation of the business? That's usually what the business is about, the business model, how they make money. What's the complication? Why do they need consultants? Here they want to quadruple the profit. And then also possible solutions. Here, what I love to do is I really want you to be very clear on the objective and criteria of success for the case. That's not the same. Objective is what we want to be able to tell the client, and criteria of success is what they need to know, what we need to solve for, that the criteria is, or that actually the case is a success. So for example, sometimes the objective would be to advise the client to enter a new market, yes or no. And the criteria of success to enter is whether there's an opportunity to double profit. So that's how you differentiate the two. But it's very important for me, if you recap the case, that you have clarity on those: situation, complication, and then for the solution, what is the objective and what is the criteria of success, or maybe main questions that our client wants answered. So be able to structure it. Yeah. Also, you did actually recap the main question: how do we advise our client? What I noted down is that plus that you mentioned that, minus that you mentioned the process. How do we advise our client speaks to what we do. The best insights is what the client needs to know. So there's a difference between content and process that is incredibly important in consulting. So you can improve your performance if you actually speak to the insight, not just to the process that you're planning for the case. But good that you mentioned it. I noted that down. And then in terms of clarifying questions, I love the fact that you brought clarifying questions and you showed the interest, but be mindful that the clarifying questions should not go into strategy yet. I always say just ask things that the interviewer can answer top of their mind and they don't have to dive through or scroll through the PowerPoint to find information. So ask about very high level business model, which you did. That was great. High level market, no details about growth or segments or anything, just high level, which market it is. Clarify your definitions, clarify your objectives. That's all you need to do for the upfront questions. Then everything that goes into actual strategy and recommendation, you do in your framework. But let's look at your framework. So I'm going to jump in my role of being an interviewer again.
Okay, sounds great. That all makes a lot of sense. So I'm excited to walk you through my approach. I actually wear contact lenses myself, and they're a big part of my day and ease of use.
Me too.
So yes. So in order to assess how our client can quadruple their profitability, I hypothesize that expanding into the untapped markets of Western Europe and Japan would be a great success here. But to test this hypothesis, I'd like to look at 4 main areas. Starting off, I'd love to understand the market opportunity compared to the US and Europe and Japan and benchmark one against the other. 2, I'd like to understand financial opportunities and understand our historic performance and methods to improve our profit. And then thirdly, I'd like to understand more about our client, the contact lens manufacturer, and their operations and capabilities. And lastly, look at some additional ideas to implement alongside these. So starting off at the top, understanding more about the market, I'd like to understand the overall size and the projected growth rate for the next 10 years. B, understand who are the main key contact lens manufacturers within these regions to understand who we're competing against and the respective market size. C, I'd like to understand what are the main distribution channels. So do customers prefer buying online or going to an optician to purchase? I prefer buying online just for the ease of use, but I know that can vary depending on the region. And D, I'd like to look at customer preferences and trends within the market. So I know, especially for someone who wears contact lenses for a long period of time, some issues with like ease of wear, comfortability, oxygen levels being, best possible. I think looking how well we compete in terms of customer preferences in these markets is important. Moving on to my second area, I'd like to understand the financials. So what areas we have to improve. A, I'd like to start off with revenue. So do we have room to increase the pricings of our products? And then B, can we market more effectively? So potentially through social media to target maybe the younger generation who maybe wear contacts more often. C, expand our distribution into other opticians as well as maybe other chains and also geographically expand. And then D, improve upon our value proposition. So improve the array of contact lenses we offered, like the different colors, maybe the different features that you can add on for style, etc. And now moving on to the cost sides of the financials, I'd like to analyze our fixed and variable costs. So I'm thinking on the fixed sides, things like rent, marketing, overhead, and then on the variable, some of the labor and raw materials are some of the major costs, and seeing whether we can renegotiate some of these to be more cost efficient. Moving on to my third area, understanding more about our client. I'd like to understand our capabilities in terms of expanding our product lines or expanding geographically. B, I'd like to look at how are we going to fund this? Do we have the necessary funds available to invest? And C, within the US, I'd like to see kind of how many manufacturing facilities we have and what an expansion could look like in terms of, are we going to pilot something in Europe and Japan, or are we going to kind of go full in? Now, lastly, looking at some alternative ideas, I'd like to look at potentially expanding into new product lines, such as glasses, for example, and then B, cross-selling into some complementary products like the contact lens solutions or the holders, for example. And so this would be my thoughts there. I'd love to dive into the potential for the market in Europe and Japan if we have information there.
Okay, wonderful. So now I need to take on my coaching jacket. When you finish your structure, please ask me what I think. That's very
Okay.
important. And then adjust it to my feedback. Because remember also, as the interviews, we want to help you. We don't want anyone to underperform. So we're going to give you the information we have. And if we feel you forgot the bucket or the order doesn't really make sense, we're going to tell you. So it gives you a lot of comfort. So also say, what do you think about the structure and what should we start with? Then you get the feedback, you adjust it, and it also makes you comfortable. All right. How was this? I think this was a very strong structure with a few points of improvements. What I liked is that you communicated very well and you had a hypothesis. A hypothesis really differentiates a great candidate from a good candidate, because in consulting, we all work with a hypothesis or focusing on the output. So this is really great how you did that. And often I get people from academia and they're like, how can I come with a hypothesis at the beginning? I don't know anything yet. Keep in mind that a hypothesis in consulting is more a gut feeling. It's not your actual hypothesis like you have in academia that you're already 99% sure. And the purpose is not to have 99% certainty. The purpose is to channel yourself to an output that you can then adjust. So I think that was really great. Now, what I also liked is that you recapped the objective that we want to quadruple profit. I would have liked it if you would have started your framework by saying you want to quadruple profits. And what is important there is that the market is suitable to that, that from the financials, you can increase revenue and or decrease costs. And then you also look at other considerations to increase profit, which would be other profitable products or anything within the business, so that you actually look at the key assertions you want to test. So often when I have candidates, they build their framework around everything that would be interesting to know. But the best consultants build their frameworks by saying, what do I need to believe to be true to come up with an answer? And even if the actual items you then just list what you want to list, at least for the first level, try to phrase it as an assertion. What do you need to test? What do you need to believe to be true? That will be really great. What you did about market, it's great. We always ask size, growth, and trends. Never ask about the number without looking at the trend. No consultant would do that ever. Competitors, for me, a lot of candidates just say they want to learn about the competitors. I always highlight as a plus the ones who actually tell me what they want to check there. Because otherwise we know everything about the competitors that we know in the world and we don't have any so what. And remember, the biggest mistake that candidates make in their understanding of how a case interview works is that they think they will be hired for a great analysis. No. We expect you to do a great analysis. What you are going to be hired for is if you get this so what right. If you can tell us what your analysis means for the client. And I feel often with competitors, that's where candidates miss it the most. They want to know everything about the competitors without being able to tell me the so what that means for the client. So be mindful here. But what I liked is that when you spoke financials, you spoke about revenue and cost because that informs the profit. I also like that you thought about new ideas. I would have kept that a little bit shorter. And also, you know what? You could have built more like segments of your framework or simplify it, because what you basically did is you first answered the question, is it possible to quadruple the profit? Yes or no? That you answer by looking at the market and looking at the financials. That how is it possible? What are the capabilities? What does the business need to bring to the case? And what else do we have to keep in mind, or what else is possible? These are your additional products. So you can also simplify your language to show that you're really customizing the framework and it's not just a textbook one. But overall, I think that was really, really great. So thank you so much for the overall structure. We can then dive into it. And the first thing I would like us to look at is more of a math question. And what I will show you is I will show you the financials of the company for you to take a look and then actually see what are the insights that you can gain from here for the overall answer of our case. There we go.
Okay, great. Can I take a moment here to just gather my thoughts?
Yes, of course, please do.
Okay, great. So here I see that we have various expenses and various margins. And I see that actually after all of the costs have been accounted for, I think that the net income after taxes is actually a very small proportion of overall revenue. And so we have a very extensive list of costs where I think there could be opportunity to streamline some in order to impact overall profitability on the cost lever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. Are this your main insight, eh?
Yeah,
All
that's my main
right.
one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I think what was really great is that you look at the key drivers. That's always really good. Let me put on my coaching jacket. If you look at the key drivers, we always love that because we always look for the main drivers, what really drives the needle. That's really what we do in consulting. However, I think what you could have done here is to also recap what does it actually mean for the business to quadruple profit and really use your quantitative skill in analyzing, because we can see here that we would need to increase our revenue by 600 to 700 million pound. Also, what we can see is that we have an information about the profit margin. So we can actually see that if ever we can increase our profit margin, the revenue we need to hit goes down. However, we can see there is no clear so what coming out of this overview. So I think it's also totally fair to say at this point in time that you would need a little bit of more information. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
And then you also wanted to look at competitors. And I do have indeed some information about the major competitors for our clients. I already gave you the names. This was Novartis and Bausch and Lomb. These are our main competitors that I've identified for us. And what we know about them is they are big players with a wide array of products. They're not much differentiated. They're very similar products to ours. For a disposable lens, a consumer pays $400 per year. For regular lenses, a consumer pays $100 per year. What are the key insights you can now tell from the exhibits I'm about to show you about this actual case? So here we have an exhibit that speaks a little bit about the client sales per region. This is in the US.
Okay, great. So it
I
looks
have
like
more.
there's
Wait, I'm here. I have a whole box of valuable information. This is the client mix product. I spoke about regular and disposable, and cosmetic and traditional. There are the two categories. Oh, sorry, this was more my insight. So these are the two data sets: the client sales by region and the client product mix.
okay. So perhaps I can start off with the first exhibit. So if you could, yeah. So I'd just like to clarify, do we know what series 1 is?
And that's just the client sales.
Okay, no worries. So I see that there's a geographical distribution of sales, with highest being in the Northeast. What's concerning to me is that the South represents only 10% of our overall sales. So in terms of where I'd like to look next, I'd like to see whether there's opportunity to increase sales within kind of the lower regions, such as the South, and understand why we don't have a large presence there.
Wonderful. All right. And what are you taking out of this graph?
Okay, let me take a moment here. Great. So it looks like the majority of our product mix comes from disposable, which is also $400 a year. So our higher revenue product, which is very favorable. And then also in terms of style, traditional is also favored very highly. And so that's quite interesting there. And so, yes, with that information, let me think about where I'd like to look at next and what this tells me.
Mm-hmm. I can also help you. Let me take on my coaching jacket. So great. Thank you so much. Remember, when you have an exhibit, it's always good, similar to how you did, to first describe what you see. then interpret what you see, and then come up with the so what that means for the client. So for example, we could have described that the SALC only makes some 10% of all of the sales. We could have interpreted that this could either be an opportunity for growth. Maybe this is just an unsaturated market and there's massive growth opportunity. Or this could also mean that it's just not an attractive market because people are not using the contact lenses there. And then the so what would mean that we basically have to identify where our client can focus on or where our client can play. The other point that you could have noted is that, you did interpret it. We have a much higher proportion for the disposable lenses, but also we could have interpreted that if the revenue is that much higher from these, it might also mean that the profit margin is higher. So the disposable contact lenses might really be a key lever for us to quadruple profit. All right. Any thoughts or questions so far for me as a coach?
So that makes sense to me.
And moving from the math question, we now have a creative question. So if you look at the purchase process for contact lenses, customers usually can be classified into two categories: the new adopters and the existing lens users. So new adopters are first-time users of contact lenses. They usually go to a retail store and then they get the eye exams done. And existing users like you are the ones who get the refill for the existing lenses from retail stores or from online. How do customers decide which brand of contact lenses they would use? What do you think?
Okay, could I take a moment here to jot down some thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I think I'd like to separate these factors into financial and non-financial. I think on the financial side, I think more price-sensitive customers will be wary of the price. And I know that fluctuates, whether those are like daily, monthly, or like yearly contact lenses as well. And on the non-financial side, I'm thinking about the comfort of wear, the level of breathability or oxygen let into the contact lens, kind of reviews online, as well as potential like optician like endorsement as well. I think those are some of the major factors customers consider.
Mm-hmm. That would be the criteria that they would consider when they choose.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Let me put on my coaching jacket. I think what is really good is that you use a structured approach. So you come with categories, what they would consider if they are buying the new contact lenses. However, the question is, what did this question target at? Was really around the customer journey, how new adopters or existing clients think about contact lenses so that our client can tap here there with marketing initiatives. And often when we don't know really where to start, it's really good to map out the customer journey. And if we map out the customer journey, we will know that new adopters don't know much about the contact lenses. So they would either do independent research or they would trust their optometrist because they've never purchased, they don't know much. Whereas existing users, they often keep the same brand. They have it already, but if they switch, they might rather switch to cheaper like options. So these are all of our insights. But now the so what is, if we want to grow profit, who would we go for? New adopters or existing clients?
Okay, I can take a moment here to think.
But I'm still in my coaching jacket. You can just help me. Give me a guess on top of your mind.
Yeah, so it looks like I think existing users tend to go more online to buy because they're already familiar with the like contact lenses. And so because we're primarily B2C, I think we can leverage the direct to consumer model and use existing users.
So when you want to grow your market share, what you rely on is not only the market size and opportunity, but a lot you rely on the switch costs. So how unlikely or likely are your customers to switch to a new brand? So that really the likelihood for them to swap. And here we can see that existing users of an everyday consumable product that doesn't make a big of a difference, they are very sticky to a brand and they often just change if it's cheaper. So if you want to grow profits, especially if you want to quadruple them, you actually want the new adopters because they haven't decided which brand they were going to use. And that's where you can tap in with your actual marketing. All right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And I would like you now to sum up the case, to leave a few minutes also for questions. So please sum up what you would recommend the client based on the case we did today.
Okay, great. Can I take a moment here?
Yes, of course.
So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working on this great project together. Our final recommendation would be to go ahead and target the new adopters customer segment, as there's lower switching costs and there's better potential for penetration within this market to achieve our goal of quadrupling profit within those 4 years. In terms of some risks involved with this, we'd have to kind of potentially develop a retail store presence as well, because a lot of new adopters go straight to in-person stores to buy as a first-time user, and leverage marketing to really adhere to what they're looking for, such as comfort, durability, and affordability as well. So in terms of some next steps, we'd love to help you develop this retail portion of your business as well, and really help you achieve your goal. So thank you so much.
All right, great. Thank you. Great. Let me take off my coaching jacket for the last time. This was really good top-down communication. You really gave me the recommendation first, and then you gave me the key factors or insights why you're saying that. Also, you took just around 30 seconds to prepare the final answer, which is great. Take less time here than you would take for the framework. Also, what I think at Bain, we always had this framework, where to play and how to win. And you gave me the how to win to go for new adopters. You didn't give me the where to play. And where to play, it would be helpful from this case that you've seen that there is an opportunity in the South and there is an opportunity for international expansion. So always think around it into where to play and how to win. All right. There was one concern I would have noted down if I was the interviewer, which was active listening, because he said if we go for the new adopters, we might need a retail presence. Meanwhile, earlier I told you that they mainly go through optometrists or through online sales. So I believe what we would actually need are partnerships with optometrists and a great online presence. So make sure that you're really mindful of everything that the interviewer says, because they will remember that. Also, if you speak top down and you have the overall recommendation, you have the insights that back it up, you can have additional data only if requested also by the interviewer. And so don't go too much into detail. I think you did it beautifully. What I just like is sometimes to link it back to what we've learned in the case. So for example, if we would have said the where to play, you say we've learned that only 10% of clients are in the South, which can also present a high growth opportunity. And last but not least, you ended with next steps, which is really great because we always love to keep our clients close and continue the work. And you told me enjoy it. I also enjoyed it. That's always great because we both want to feel excited about the case and the interview. Thank you so much for that. And I think you deserve a huge round of applause from our audience. Very, 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 very well done. Thank you so much for volunteering here to be in the live case.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much for the feedback. It's been very helpful.
Huge pleasure. Huge pleasure. I hope you can take one or two things with you.
Thank you for following along to this case interview demonstration. If you'd like to volunteer yourself for a future case, we do these live in front of an audience, and so there's a little bit of added pressure there, but in exchange, you get great case practice and really amazing feedback from a former McKinsey, Bain or BCG consultant and member of our coaching staff. So check the link in the show notes to submit your volunteer interest application, and we'll catch you on another episode soon.